Hi there. Thank you for downloading and listening to and watching the Lead Into Artcast, a show where a couple of visual storytellers get together, take on various topics that tend to occur when one goes out in pursuit of this thing we call communicating with images. We think hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I am a cartoonist and a teaching artist, and the other host is...
Hey, I'm Rob Stenzinger. I do, user experience design, and I also like to make video games. So, hey, Jerzy.
And you are also a teacher, facilitator, instructor as well.
100%. Like, honestly, that's one of my favorite things about applying user experience research and design is doing it collaboratively. And that's what's so critical about that is the facilitation aspect, creating a safe space where people can explore what questions do we even have and what's most important. Let's start exploring, and then working through that across different points of view and disciplines. I love that, navigating that and finding common ground and all that stuff. And that's facilitation. But then the teaching stuff, it's I don't know, it's one of my favorite things. So yeah, a lot of times it's channeled through workshops at different kinds of events, comic events or whatever, or I'll get paid to do on-site training from time to time, doing the different topics like in video game design, aspects of channeling a discipline that there's fun ways that it can work for something else, like the whole using your writing for designing a UI, right? There's interesting connection there, and I've got a whole pile of workshops, and yes, I love to teach. That's the short of it.
And that was a attempted segue into what this week's topic is going to be. But before we do that, I should say, if anybody's new to the show, we've had enough episodes now that there's people who have been with us for a long time. But there's always every show is somebody's first, as the saying goes. And what our format typically is that we break it into two sections where we take a single topic, we try to drill down as far as we can that week with it. And the first section is usually like, what does it look like when we're doing this thing, engaging with this topic? And the second half is like, how do we think about this thing? It tends to change depending on the topic. Not all topics have like a physical, like doing aspect. But this one, I think, has a little bit of that, right? Because this week, speaking of teaching, Rob, how have things been going with the new workshop that you just released, drawing user journey maps, design user experiences, gather ideas, and collaborate?
Yeah, that's a big one. How is it going? Let's see. I feel proud. I feel good about getting that new course into the world. Bit of a class that's divided up into a few lessons. It's like 47 minutes, but it covers some pretty deep things that I care about, that are pretty useful, that people have reacted to in situations I've been in, as far as teaching or facilitating. And I'm like, this would be neat to share. I'm really happy that I got that out, and now I'm working through the process of spreading the word, which, the premise of this episode of the podcast is also a way to spread word about that class, obviously, but it also is a way to explore and navigate the experience of doing this as a creative challenge, and even the process of like, why do why make a class in the first place and all that. So those are very much the kinds of things that I think we love to explore. And I know that a lot of the folks who listen to the show also do different kinds of teaching and stuff. Whether that's sharing their experience via YouTube challenges or what have you, or straight up workshops. So yeah, feel like it's, makes sense to chat about.
Well, also, I mean, a thing that we've explored on the show a lot in the past is this idea of art as service, right? Service-minded art creation. So even if you're making products, like for instance, like we talk a lot on the show about making mini comics, something that I do and something that you do in your work as a user experience person is we think of personas. Who's the person who's going to interact with this thing? And how can I make this of service to this person? So I think even if you don't necessarily have an interest in leading a comics or a UI UX workshop, or design thinking workshops, the experience that you went through in developing this particular product, I think will be applicable to anybody who's making art in a service-driven or service-minded way, right?
I think so. I think I'm super biased, right? Because the finding common benefits and like techniques, ideas, what have you, in how people frame up problems and explore them and all that. I mean, that's the general creative process that I think especially is pretty shareable and reusable when you get into like, well, we did this or I did this with this intent and these methods to serve a purpose for this audience. That's what a lot of us do.
Okay, so that's our topic this week. Is we're going to go through the journey with you as how you made this new Skillshare class and use it as a case in point or a case study that we can apply to, or at least give us some basis for thinking about how we would launch our own different kinds of products, art products, teaching products. So with that, I'll hit the music and we will head over to the first section of the show.
Gonna go for powered descent. Go.
Music cue, merely there to indicate to you that we are now fully in it. So, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, the Skillshare. This I know it makes sense to jump right into the process or whatnot, but I think there's some context. So when you make a product, you have a mechanism of distribution somehow, and in this case. And in a lot of cases, we have marketplaces all over the place. Marketplace is somewhere that unites two different audiences, supply and demand. And we're soaking in them today. You can be on a marketplace for every step you take every day, a different marketplace. I mean, they're all over the place for all sorts of things, themed in different ways for different purposes and what have you. I mean, Amazon.com is a huge marketplace.
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter, Gumroad. These, places like, well, the app stores, the comics portals, they're all over the place.
Line Webtoon, Tapas, Kindle.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Skillshare happens to be one that they're doing something that I find pretty interesting. They're bringing a somewhat curated set of learning experiences to an audience that well, I mean, it's people who are sort of self-directed exploring learners. And honestly, I feel a lot of, common care about that because, well, Lean Into Art is certainly a podcast along that same spirit, right? And, we provide workshops. We don't essentially have like a Netflix of workshop consumption. But so far, what we've put out into the world is mostly pay what you would like. Now I'll be experimenting with more models than that. But Skillshare's out there. They have a pretty huge established audience and community. They've been around for a few years, and that's their method. It's kind of like Netflix for classes. And so there's a marketplace. Well, okay, well, they need to bring in teachers, and you need to, you got to keep expanding that content, and teachers that you have, you want to keep them making new classes and all that kind of stuff, right? So they run a monthly creative challenge to make a class within a month, and that you run through these stages that they have really well documented, tons and tons of advice baked into their platforms, and like encouraging emails at different stages, reminding you about what could be next. What's that next small step that could you do to get through that stage gate? And those stages being, plan your class, produce it, publish it, and then promote it. Those are not evenly distributed for me. It's not like, 25% of the work is this, and then et cetera. Nope. Oh boy.
Yeah. I imagine that those distributions are going to be different from person to person. So
I think so, because if you come to it with workshops already, which I do, but I thought I know, because I had goals, and we'll cover them in a minute. I just, I wanted to create a new thing. So let's see. They have all this baked in advice. They've got like reminders and triggers via emails. And then the whole thing is facilitated in a way through kind of a simplistic forum, right? It reminds me of sort of a robust blog comment section. And that's sort of this sequence of comments over time. And then you can have comments on comments. So, and there's a little bit of, you can like and reply, right? But it's a very, it's not, you're not drowning in features in this thing. It's pretty simple. And it's this communication mechanism where the facilitators, they broadcast into that, and they do their emails, and they say, well, here's where we're at. And they do little incentives along the way as well. They'll say, hey, the first 15 people to finish their class title card, right, will, be in a drawing for an Amazon gift card or what have you. Or, they do little things to keep incentivizing both extrinsically and, encouraging you, so you feel that fire intrinsically as well. Which you probably do to be there in the first place, to sign up and give it a shot.
Right. But I mean, but yes, that's clever that they do that, because I can see it being the second step of taking on any endeavor like this is suddenly realizing the amount of work that's involved. And even when it's a time box thing, like a monthly challenge, like in Inktober, many of us have been there in Inktober, like on week 2, and been like, oh gosh, right now suddenly this is feeling like I'm adding like work to my day. This is adding a lot.
I'm drawing a dozen bicycles in perspective. What have I done?
Right. Yeah.
This was supposed to be informal and fast, and no, it's I've seen that happen literally. I mean, I'm what do you call it? 24-hour comic day a few years ago. I mean, I sat next to a gentleman who tortured himself with that. It's just hard to watch. It's fun to joke about though. I made other bad choices as to myself. And we do that in creative challenges. Like one time when I failed 24-hour comic day, it's because I literally said, I'm going to learn Manga Studio today.
Right.
And that was that threw a monkey wrench at things. It was fun, learned a lot, but didn't finish.
But so that extrinsic motivation is that extrinsic motivation is like a great reminder too, that like the shipping is like as important, if not the most important. So like, stop agonizing over it, get up here and do the thing and just get it done. Let's make it a race. We're going to make it a race. I've done that in my classrooms before, where the kids are working on a comics page together, and I'll broadcast my desktop up through the projector. I'll be like, all right, I'll race you. We'll see who gets the page done first, and they'll be like, that's not fair. You're a professional. I'm like, huh? You're here. I'm here. We're racing.
That's great. Yeah, it's and there's something about it too. So you hear the groans and the challenges where in being part of a cohort or like the group of people that is in this place and time facing that same challenge is kind of neat. I mean, it's one of the things that I enjoy about time-based creative challenges. So yeah, you're there with this group all trying to do the thing. And so then they run you through these gates. In my language, I'm summarizing and paraphrasing. I'm not I don't work for them and all that stuff. I mean, everyone's independent and it's a marketplace, right? I'm sure you've bought lots of, they bought something off of a vendor who it's like, it's not the name of the website who is actually, you're doing the transaction with, but the website's facilitating it, whatever. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Marketplace. Process of creating a class. So yeah, I mean, so you start out where they want you to, you get to the plan and get that core concept down. And that in and of itself can be a gauntlet to run. Because I mean, a lot of folks, and myself included, have this idea that you want to cover like many things. You want to cover lots of topics with lots of potential benefit and outcomes because you just want to help so much, right? So you have too many ideas, which turns out, it hurts. It hurts the class. It hurts the class as far as it's like having a reasonable scope. Like, what could someone engage with within what? And there's so many like nudges and guidelines that they have baked into their advice, things that I don't normally consider when I do a workshop. I think of the sort of the beginning, middle, and end. I think about outcomes. I think about lots of things that they recommend thinking about. But there's also things like, have your workshop divided up into segments of 1 to 5 minutes each, right? Ideally, even 1 to 3 minutes. And I'm like, I would try to do that. And then, have an introduction that's 1 to 5 minutes. Have a closing that's this long, and then have a like a hands-on project that's the core of it. And part of their pedagogy and that helps thematically unite a lot of the works on the site. They want classes that have a hands-on learning aspect to them, which provides a variety of benefits. It's of the perspective that you will learn more with a topic when you engage with it to a greater extent and all that. That's fantastic. And it creates something potentially that's shareable, which has an enlightened self-interest aspect to it.
Yeah, look what I did. I did it on Skillshare. Here's the affiliate link. You should sign up today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Enlightened self-interest when it's in a spirit of service, and it's not, onerous or noisy or pushy. I think that can be good. And so that's
that doesn't sound like it's gently encouraging is different than saying like everybody follow our Instagram account and then tag a friend in the comments and then also follow our Facebook page and then you'll be entered to win a gift certificate for such and such, right? Like that's a different thing. And I mean, that model speaks very, very like loud and clear to my bias as the programming coordinator for the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival, where I really lean into the idea of a hands-on component because walking out of a class with an artifact of your experience is powerful. It can be just as powerful to hear an enlightening conversation or a panel discussion or a lecture, certainly. But I think for a lot of people, having something that says like, they presented me with these interesting ideas. This is my application of these ideas, and here's the artifact to show my understanding of the experience that I had. That's some profound stuff. And so, whether they share it or not, I think that's a cool thing to encourage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's part of my approach too. Is the whether you share it or not, because inherently, my class, when applied, it'll be used in business situations that people won't want to share what comes out of it. So
hashtag drawing user journey maps. Good meeting. A bunch of guys looking satisfied around a table.
Sure. Well, no, I mean, sharing the result, it's the thing that, could be part of what they feel is the secret sauce of their business that they wouldn't want to then, broadcast. Right. So actually I try to provide sort of seed examples to practice the concepts without, creating too much preciousness and stuff. But yeah, this process, right? Thinking of, choosing a topic is a minefield in and of itself. It's a forest, how did you do it? It's a universe. It's a place to get lost. I thought about what I cared a lot about to share, which is I wanted to do something related to my user experience work that I have received a lot of positive feedback on in the past, and then make it so now other people can do that too. And so it was, there's a focus. I have a few, like I've taught and I've mentored regarding user experience, but like I don't have a lot of that stuff in my workshop repertoire, right? So this is definitely, it fits in the new category as well. So but even having like, this is where I want to go, this is my goal or whatever, it just still, I needed to think about to think really hard, like really what were people talking about when they complimented my work. I need to dig deeper and generate some ideas. So I did the whole, like, I made sure I wrote a lot of ideas down. And I had probably, I don't know, maybe I think it'd be reasonable to just generate like 10 to 15 ideas, but I had like maybe 50. And but then I had about 5 that were rough draft full outlines where I just went wild with post-it notes and stuff and tried to create these things and sell myself on this concept and that concept and that concept. So but then I honed in. I thought there's something about, well, it needs to have some mechanics, and it also needs to have this being imbued with skill and philosophy that make the mechanics worthwhile. And so then I landed on journey mapping, because it's a part of it, doing user-centered design. It's, well, you put yourself in the shoes of the user, and the journey map is then, now you don't have to just, you will grow by not just looking at one point in time and say, well, just do this. And now I'm thinking about the user doing this. It's no, there's something that happened before, during, and after. And you unpack that to a greater extent, and you unpack it across multiple perspectives collaboratively, right? And now you've got something that all sorts of people on the team can really relate to and stuff. And I've done this like hundreds of times, and I've seen it be useful the vast majority of those of those times, because it's not done in like the perfunctory, like let's make a quadrant of like, is it easy or is it difficult, or is it cheap or is it expensive, and like, let's brainstorm ideas in the quadrants and stuff. It's like, that's great as maybe as an exercise, but to really do something that makes a difference to an audience, you need to think about and include that audience. It's critical. It's, and so I wanted to make sure that I was doing justice to what I love about user experience and all that. So holding myself accountable, and that helped me hone and narrow down. But yeah,
I'm reminded, I've had conversations with other creative people where there's topics that if you ask me what I love about it, I can probably give you like a full 5 minutes of like nonstop speech on like why this topic is interesting to me. But if you were to ask me like, what's central, what's sacred to you, what is like fundamental to the work that you do, it's not always the easiest thing to get at. We know it and we feel it, but we don't necessarily all have words for it, right? And so what I'm hearing in there that I think is worth underlining is that despite the fact that this is something you've gotten a lot of feedback on, despite the fact that this is something that you feel very passionate about, it's clear from what you just said, there still was a lot of sticky note writing and hypothesizing and spitballing and pitching to yourself that you went through to make sure that that signal was clear, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because having that signal clear enough to keep going, right? And that gets embodied in essentially the class title and description at this point. Mm-hmm. And thinking about, well, a class description is going to include, well, here's who this class is for, and like sort of maybe prerequisites or tools or equipment and all that kind of stuff, where you think about, oh, I'm going to this workshop, I better bring my brush pens instead of my color, whatever, markers or whatever. What do people need as tools? What kind of outcomes will you try to bring about for them and help them bring about for themselves? That's what happens in the title and description. And even that, it took a lot of iterations. So, because it's, what am I, like you were saying, like making it clear, there's so much to cover. What my title is a wordy bunch of words, right? I mean, it's not the typical, I often do, clever, exciting, no, let's not kid ourselves, titles. But it short enough titles that they're more they're transmitting excitement and stuff because they end up in sort of, flyers and stuff for an event. And I want them to stand out. But this is different. This is like, well, some people are exploring. It's a product in a portal, in a marketplace. And, I need to describe it in a way that's clear, and it includes the outcomes and the sort of what you can expect to do. And so that took a lot of revising, because I emphasize different things with these different revisions about, is it just user journey maps? Is it honestly mapping itself as a concept? Like, what you're doing is just defining a space of ideas and relationships. And that's more what it is underneath, but there's a little bit of popular enough jargon in this idea of user journey. And okay, so maybe I should use that, because I want to be inclusive and recognizable with all this stuff. So a lot of scrutiny and revision that happened at this stage, and even as I've continued to get to things like the outline and whatnot. So, yes.
I mean, to your title, I want to read it. I'll pull it up on the screen so we can all read it together. So, drawing user journey maps. So there we've got our verb and our noun. We're drawing. This is what we're drawing. To what end? Well, for these three things. To design user experiences, 1, to gather ideas, 2, and to collaborate, 3. Right, so like it's a longish title, but it's very clear in what its intent is. You're going to draw. This is what you're going to draw, and here's 3 potential applications and 3 pain points that I've identified that you're going to use this thing for. And I mean, in lesson plan design, if for those who haven't done it, like these are things that objective and outcome, right? Objective, what are you going to teach them how to do? What skill are you going to imbue them with? And outcome, what are they going to be able to do with that skill after you've given them that, like connected them with that skill? So it's another thing to think
exactly.
about.
Which, I mean, it may seem odd to create in a way. This is like creating the package that the product is going to fit in before actually finishing the product. But it's a design constraint, and it's clarifying and focusing. It's a little bit
this is what we do when we pitch.
Couch. Yeah.
When we pitch a book, we pitch like it's going to be this many pages. It's going to be roughly about this, right? Like when Ann and I did Rockets, we came up with a sentence, right? Like the history, what was it? What was it? It was the history and science of rockets as told by the animals who participated in rocket history. That's what we had at the outset, right? And like,
wow.
What stories? I don't know. We'll find out. So yeah, it's like defining the objective and anticipating an outcome, and then filling in all the pieces between those 2 points, right?
And a pitch is a great mechanism to do that, because it's meant to really in a concise way say, this is what it's about, and it's important because this is why it matters, pitching is a great practice. And in a way, I was doing that even at this stage by trying to come up with that the kind of title that would be so clear and desirable. But I did actually get really literally into pitching later on.
Yeah, that's that. Maybe, well, we'll see how much room we've got in this half of the show, because we're already getting pretty close to break time. So where do you want to take us before we go to our break?
Oh, let's see. I think we covered a lot about the topic and landing on that. And the goals I had really helped inform it. Then I suppose we could pick up from how now it's time to really nail down the project. Like, what will people actually make in this class? So let's pick up from there after the break.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So so how about in about a minute and 30 seconds, that's where we'll go, like defining figuring out, okay, this is what I want to teach people. So again, we'll go to objective and outcome. Objective, what skill are they going to learn? Well, now we got to figure out what activity we can have them do in order to learn that skill, right? And you can take any topic you want, like life drawing. All right, I want to teach people to be able to draw what they see. All right. Well, what kind of ways can you do that? What activity are you going to have them do? Well, probably something to do with drawing, but what things are you going to have them draw, right? We've got a workshop coming up for A2CAF this year where Lee Shirolis is going to lead a workshop on doing life drawing for kids, but it's like setting up toys. He's going to set up some toys on a pedestal, and it's just like, this is stuff you like to look at anyway, so we might as well learn how to do some life drawing by looking at cool toys. And I was like,
that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great.
Yep.
All right. So that's the kind of stuff we're going to talk about coming up in a minute and 30 seconds. Before we do that, I've got to thank some people who make the show possible. And those people happen to be the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/leanintoart is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in us and you believe in the work that we do, you can go to patreon.com/leanintoart and contribute as little as $1 a month. And if enough people do that, then the show will become sustainable. Rob and I can give up some of our other jobs and make this more of our full-time job. And we want to thank 5 people who have been believing in us and what we do and helping us to make the show more sustainable. First up, Dave Say. Dave Say, longtime friend of the show and hero of the show, the creator of the Emergent Task Planner, which has gotten a lot of mileage on the 270-odd episodes that we've done together. You can find Dave on Twitter at Dave Say. Thank you, Dave. Also, Kelly Ishikawa. You can find Kelly on Twitter at Kelly of Ishikawa. Thank you, Kelly. Also, Greg Horvath. Thank you, Greg. We appreciate it. You can follow Greg on Twitter at IGMHORV77. These will all be linked in the show notes, by the way. So you can follow these people because if they get something out of this show, and if you get something out of the show, you probably have something to connect with about it. Also, Stephen Stonebush. Thank you, Stephen, for believing in us. And then finally, Marc Faulk. And you can join them all at patreon.com/leanintoart, where you will find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for the people who support us on Patreon. Those posts become an open mic post where you can take the conversation wherever you want with fellow leaners, and we thank everybody who has been participating in that. It means a lot to us.
It really does. Thank you very much.
Rob, you're doing some screen sharing. What's going on?
Well, this is a way to share the project that's involved in this course and this class, where every class you can think of it as, it's a mechanism to actually consume the page for the class is a mechanism to consume the class, but it's also a way to participate in it, in the community and all that stuff, and give reviews, which I certainly would love reviews. Anyone who has taken my class, that'd be really, really, really awesome. But then there's this projects and resources tab, and this is what you're where you're building toward. This is the you describe the thing that like different teachers, different classes, all sorts of styles as far as this, like what's the project for the class, right? And how do they how much do they put into this, or do they put it all in the video or on the page, whatever. It's everyone does something different. For me, I wanted to make it tangible that well, this is what you're making, and you can zoom in on this image and get a better feel for it. You can get a feel for the process even. You don't even have to watch any videos. You can just read it right here or what have you. But we're talking about more the idea of planning. You're still in the planning stage, right, of the class, and this is where you're building toward at this point, thinking about like what project will these participants create. And for me, it's that for some classes, I plan on teaching more classes out on Skillshare, and maybe even distributing them through other mechanisms as well that are paid. And the project is this. It's funny because if I was giving this as a talk, I wouldn't necessarily be worried too much about someone carrying something away from this, because the core of what I'm coaching and teaching in this is more the collaborative mechanisms and encouraging participation from different perspectives and unifying them from the point of view of the journey of the user, right? And really, you could do this in a bunch of ways. You could just scribble it on paper, use sticky notes, use whatever, right? And it's not like, oh, this is the way to do 3-point perspective. And here's an approach. Here is a recipe for making an egg salad sandwich. And, here are the steps and, pictures of my sandwich. This is ideas and mapping ideas and collaborating in the experience of going through that, right? Anyway, so that's a funny thing about this project for this class, but I did want to make it tangible enough and do it in a way where the mechanism could be captured and communicated. I mean, even as you hear me as I'm describing it now, I didn't want to overvalue the mechanism because that's not the point of the class in a way. It's a part of it. It's a piece, but it's really not the main beneficial result, because I think people can draw probably a sequence of events with boxes and arrows, no problem. Like, and it's just that how you do it is the big deal for this. Anyway, yeah, that's why I was sharing my screen.
So, yeah, inevitably, and this, I mean, maybe I'm jumping ahead, getting to like how you promote and market and communicate about like what the value of your thing is. Inevitably, you have to show, well, do you or don't you have to show some kind of example of a way to do this, right? So is that what those cards were for you? It was like sort of demonstrating like it could look like this, but it's also communicating what the journey you're going to go through with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it could look like this, but I this is the thing where do I inundate with too many examples, or what is just enough to say that it could look like this? And I think what I was sharing was probably not a document that looked like it was delivering the genius of a canon written by Bach, or like a drawing from some genius, right?
Right. When I think of some of the sketch note examples that you see sometimes, they are really cool looking, but sometimes I think they can be very daunting to somebody who isn't necessarily awesome at drawing on the fly, right? Because you're also watching somebody with a lot of mastery and a lot of practice, like suddenly put together these ideas in these really cool and inventive ways, and it looks like a magic trick to the uninitiated, right? So like this is a line I find that I have to navigate a lot in classrooms, because you get some of those students who are like, okay, however he did it up on the board, that's how I have to do it because that's the right way. And if I don't get there, I've failed, right? There's that to consider. But then there's also the surface features distracting you from what's actually vital to understand, right? I spend a lot of time in my classrooms talking about how notice none of what I'm doing up here has anything to do with drawing well. I'll say that over and over and over again for that purpose, right? Like, forget about the drawing. Who cares about the drawing? Let's talk about what we're communicating, right?
And having that truth that you're connecting with and repeatedly reminding, I think is very important. And so for me, the truth is not the technical expertise of the drawing. It's getting the ideas captured collaboratively in a mechanism that lets you see things in a deeper perspective based on this catalyst of who you're serving. And that's that, and that does play out. Like, I'm sharing my screen again. I don't know if you can, if you're looking at it. Yep. But so I have this one thing I did after I performed my class was I did do sort of doodle sketch notes of the class. I listened to myself perform the class, and then I gathered these key ideas as far as what it was about, right? So I suppose this is pretty small. Full screen is unavailable. How can I make this a little bigger? But this actually is in high resolution. So if you check this video out, you'll be able to go full screen with it and see all the writing, not look like all tiny type. So, but you see what you're seeing something as a progression, and seeing it build gives a lot of context. And And so this is another, like, again, trying to maybe debunk the preciousness or lower the risk of, what this thing is, right? If you're looking at like a completed set of notes, and hopefully it's not even like a like well executed sketch notes, visual note taking, there can be a lot of magic seeming to happen, but and this is where
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
About why did you decide to show the actual animation of the notes being formed rather than just a tile with the notes?
I did both. So,
but why do both? Why not just do the static one?
Because I did want to show the formation of it, to avoid like this daunting, like, wow, there's a lot going on here. Yeah, I don't know where to get in, right? Whereas you sitting there just in like a minute and 39 seconds, seeing all this form, it's both the sort of description of the process and the execution of the process. And so I happened to zoom in on the execution of the process, this is actually a part of, this is covered in the video. Like the journey map at the bottom of the page is what gets captured in the actual lesson.
I think it's really important to back up and underline what you did there, though, and make it explicit in like the meta thinking that you're doing in there, because by having both, you're presenting something to appeal to different learning modalities. In that, as somebody who thinks about visual information all the time, designing comic book pages and thinking about like the flow of information all the time, I can look at that static image and I'm not threatened by it at all. I know that I will be able to decode it reasonably well if it's designed well, right? But you are taking the perspective of a lot of different use cases. Supposing there's somebody here who doesn't necessarily do a lot of visual reading, right? Supposing there's somebody here who is like, yeah, they can spreadsheet all day, they could read prose novels day and night, but like present them with like an elaborate mind map, and it's going to look like a mess to them, right? Take them to a salon presentation of fine art, and they're going to freak out. So let's show them a piece at a time so they can begin to see. And maybe it feels a little didactic to put it in that kind of procedural, like here's step 1, step 2, step 3. But it's showing them that these different things are interrelated, and I'm showing you, like you said, the process of I'm giving you a modeling activity where you get to see the thing forming. This is the thing you're going to do. This is what in my workshops I call the magic trick, where you do it in front of them first, and then you turn to them and say, "Now you're going to do this at the end of this workshop." Right?
That's exactly. Definitely borrowing that exact magic trick. And then this is only telling the story of the project by providing an example project. The actual, there's a lot of, specifics and detail and coverage of this, and as it is taught in the actual lesson, right? So I ended up dividing this. So we're kind of we're jumping around, but like talking about the planning again, this class I divided it up into 9 lessons. And so I went to the introduction, which is like the publicly available like pitch almost, and a little bit of context as far as more about the why and who, like the product description, like you would read on the page, but presented in a way it's like a Kickstarter video or one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I'm into this, or yeah, it's not for me. But then I've got this next section is when is it time to use it. So in a way, that's like the getting started. But then talking about tools, where you mentioned spreadsheets. Honestly, you could use a spreadsheet for this. That's fine. You need to be able to capture ideas in a flow, whatever works for you. And so I cover a lot of tools right there. And you can see in the timings of all my class sections, I totally don't optimize based on the recommended 1 to 5 minutes, but I did my best. They're pretty info packed and I think useful. But then we get we get to the project, and so the project is broken down into 5 steps, right? And so like all that stuff, that magic trick gets. I tell the audience about the magic trick, and then we go about seeing the magic trick form step by step. And by step 5, magic trick is done. And then and then when we get to the final lesson in this class, the conclusion, it's digging into like, well, when is this going right? When is it not going right? So you put this to good use, because I think design tools are very powerful. You get ideas in a group and people can march off and do something pretty helpful or not helpful. So it's worth finding those signals and tuning into that as well. Again, trying to do what's right by my discipline, by my practice, for the community of UX to not do harm. And yeah, so there you go. And it's a bit of celebration too. So hopefully people did their thing, and I'm showing, I think, proper appreciation as a facilitator. Yeah. So that's the outline.
Conclusions are also about inculcating, right? Reinforcing knowledge by saying, maybe using language you used earlier in the course, but maybe even like finding a new way to say, look at what you did. I mean, the thing I use in my classrooms is like, wow, we had nothing when we started today, but using shape, size, line, and color, you have made images that communicate meaning to me and make me feel feelings. And that's what a cartoonist's job is, right? So it's like just bringing back some of the earlier languages in to remind them one more time what tools they were playing with and why, and then congratulating them for making it to the end of that journey.
Exactly. That's awesome. And this is where part of the experiment, jumping around, going to the promotion aspect, I'm using those different notes I sketched to sort of, well, how big will this make it? No, it tries to go full screen.
Oh,
I don't know what that did.
Now it's full screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So one of the things I'm sharing socially right now to help spread word about the class is the notes that describe that final section. Because in a way, the final section, it's like beginning with the end of the story in a way, and saying, this is, in a way, someone encountering this who has interest in consuming it, well, this is what you're missing out on. You could have this.
Before, after. Yeah.
And yeah, but it covers some handy notes and ideas and stuff that comes from what's covered in the class. So yeah, that's what I happen to be using to help spread the word.
Oh, I see. This is on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah.
So can we talk about some of the promotional? So like, okay, you decide what you're going to make, you come up with a plan, and then you come up with the activity that the people are going to do, and then you make the thing. You finally like shoot the video, you write the script, you make the art product, whatever it is, after deciding who's going to use it and how, and whom it's for, and what marketplace you're going to go with.
Yep. Plan, then produce. Yep.
Now the hardest part for at least the guys like us. How do you get the word out?
The promotion. Yeah, it's rough. It's still rough after all this time, after making so many things and hundreds of podcasts and all that.
Can I just say, like, people, social media, yes, it's important. Lots of people use it. Everybody uses it, right? Facebook, super important. But you know what? Like, a month and a half, 2 months after I moved to Columbus, I was hearing from people saying, "What? You moved to Columbus?"
You did what?
And I was posting
how it flows, when people see it, the timelines. Is it, do they consume things in a timeline? Do they not? The platform jumbles it all up, and who knows if they get to see it and when. Yeah. All these intermediary mechanisms, it takes a lot of hustle. It's funny. And it's like my default is to create a thing of service that is of such benefit that it doesn't get ignored. But then even if someone can, for someone to ignore it, they have to have actually seen it. And so getting past that threshold is not trivial. So like all the marketplaces like we listed, like every single one of them have this issue. And I've experienced like, well, what it's like when a community's small versus when it's huge. And like when I first released Guitar Fretter, the game, I mean, it was it initially it took me a few weeks to get it to Apple iTunes, but I published it on, what was Google? Was it even Google Play back then?
No, it was called the Marketplace, wasn't it? The Android Android Marketplace.
Yeah, and that's where I published Guitar Fretter to a lot smaller crowd on the platform, but also a lot less competition. And so yeah, I, through a few other lucky things, I mean, that project did pretty good early on because of ad placement. AdWords didn't cost as much. I mean, had great conversion. It had a product market fit. People wanted to learn about or have it be fun to memorize the note positions on a guitar fretboard. So yay. But like, the market can exist and you still may not reach them. So like, that's something that I'm working to figure out. Like, I'm promoting on different platforms I normally wouldn't. Like that LinkedIn post, it got 29 likes. I can get 29 likes a lot of places, but it had 755 views, and I don't always get 755 views. So that's interesting. That gives me an idea where this is never done, right? The whole idea of the promoting. But could I look myself in the mirror doing it in the way that I completely don't like, right? There's a reason why I've not bought a Twitter ad or Facebook ad yet. Because I haven't, unlike we've talked about it on Lean Into Art, like maybe 18 months or more ago, and I was going to try it. I haven't yet because I don't like it. and I haven't found the rationale to navigate it. But when marketing is of service and truly non-intrusive and respectful, I'm for that. I'm down with that. So that's the puzzle, right? So this signal is something I may like. I've got a couple ideas on how to follow up on. I think that it's publishing something that is fun and useful on LinkedIn may have a bigger upside than other platforms. I don't know, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah. No, I've noticed. I haven't been like doing a lot of research on this, but it's like an incidental sort of like a blip on my radar that made me go like, oh, that's interesting. Mastodon, remember Mastodon? Mm-hmm. The federated social media platform, and it's like Twitter sort of, but it's like there's no algorithm, so it's like it's truly a chronological timeline, and then it's federated in the sense that different Mastodon groups are hosted on their own servers and they have their own moderators. So there's like different. It's sort of like also like a subreddit in that way, because you can have like sort of themed Mastodon nodes, or I forget what they're called. They're not nodes; it's something else. But I'm on an art one, and I only have like 85 followers on my account there. But the engagement per capita is so much more. Like I'll get like 60 interactions with a post there, when it's like, well, that's almost all the people who follow me, versus say like, oh, I've got like whatever, like 1,000 something followers on Instagram, and like a post will get like 30 engagements of whatever, whether it's a thumbs up or a comment or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like when that happens, you go like, okay, well, what's different, and is it worth following up on? That kind of experimentation.
And it's important. It's really important. It's like technically that it's possible you could reach a wide audience, but due to the mechanisms and the volume of information, how it's presented, it's not easy or instant. Like you need to do a lot of work to get into someone's awareness to even possibly be ignored. Mm-hmm. And so that's anyway, that's definitely not my superpower, but I'm working on it.
So can I ask what kind of thoughts you've been having in terms of like what kinds of things you're sharing to, because you showed a video earlier. It's like, okay, here's a video I did that summarizes the experience you're going to have in my workshop series. Any other kinds of things you've been playing with in terms of like, Instagram stories, or was it like a dependence on images, or are you going to do like a Medium post? Like what kind of things you're going to do, are you thinking about doing to help create some kind of extra signal for this thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the above. I have, oh, right. So what I think is important is to have some kind of like launch plan. And for me, it's not a severe schedule. It's more about, this is a checklist of things I want to try. And the thing is, the checklist generates more lists too. Like this post on LinkedIn is interesting signal that I'm definitely going to experiment further with. And that's part of the whole intent of this launch plan, but to try these different venues and stuff, right? So I've reached out to friends, I've reached out to some social networks, I've promoted on this podcast, so I'm going through this list. And then so part of it too is the messages that I'm putting out into like this message I put on LinkedIn is similar but not the same as one I put on Instagram, because this is the group of people that for sure, like many of them I've worked with directly. I don't really connect with a bunch of recruiters unless I'm working with a recruiter on LinkedIn, right? So this is over the course of way beyond a decade of a career, that I've connected with a bunch of people and made an impression. So like, this is building off of a deeper context than other places. And so I want to make sure like those words that people, when they think like, yeah, I totally, wander over to Rob's desk or call him or email him because of blank. I want to make sure I'm putting that in there. And so it's adding that kind of purposefulness in the message. I think people who are better at describing things briefly would call it microcopy.
I feel like we're getting close to final thought. Do you want to end on some of this promotional stuff and things that you're thinking about doing down the road, or do you want to, or did you see something else that we didn't touch on that you would have liked to?
Well, let's see. This has been, I think, closing off this part, I would say, going through all that learning and producing in parallel with a group of people that are also doing this. It's nice. It wasn't, I don't think it was mandatory for me, but like, it's neat to see other people work, like doing Inktober or what have you. And it's like, there's a bunch of people at this virtual space and time that are on a similar quest, and that's it's neat to see, because they go through similar questions as well. Like, I mean, people in the forum asking about, now what do I do to promote my class and publish and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I had that question. Yeah. Like, what's happening? And so it's almost like, yeah, you're just efficiently soaking in like this collective learning experience. So, yay, creative challenge, even for this, yeah, I suppose, but as far as like what could be a final thought from this?
Well, just if I could underline what you were just talking about there too, is it's like YouTube is such a rich source of information. There's a lot of noise in there, but there's so much richness in terms of, if you want to know like the gist of a subject, you can find it out pretty easily. Like, I found a YouTube channel recently that just like is going through every country of the world and like giving you like a 3-minute summary of like what you need to know about that country, right? It's like anything that you need. Somebody's making some kind of cool video about it. But the one thing that it can't replicate yet, at least not very well, is the shared experience of learning a thing together, right? So like my most recent experience was taking that watercolor class at the Ann Arbor Arts Center. I talk about that a lot because it's like, how does that expression go? Everything you wanted to know about X, but we're afraid to ask. Like you said, it's like just knowing that somebody else in the room is struggling with the thing that you're struggling with, and being able to turn to the person next to you and say like, yeah, this is hard, that goes a long way to help you not feel like you're lost. right? Or at least if you are lost, you're lost with like fellow travelers. That's a pretty, like, I think a neat component of the journey that you went on with this artistic or this business challenge. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a really good point. This is like a shared learning experience to create a learning experience, which that's fun. Playfully recursive. And yeah, so I've got a few things where I'm going to dig deeper, and as far as the promotion and next creative stuff, I can share some of those thoughts.
Okay.
Final thought.
Okay.
I'm curious too about like more of your reactions to this. I've been like, hog in the ball, right? So let's
This is a very Rob episode, but like I was hoping it would be, because I know that you went through an enormous experience, and this is you coming, well, in the hero's journey language, this is you coming back with the boon, right? You went and you got all cut up and turned into a million pieces, eaten by a whale, spit out by a raven, and now you come back with the knowledge to give back to the people of the town, right?
I do like to do that. That's that's the adventuring professor, right?
Yes, the adventuring. Well, sort of like a cleric, right? Like
Okay.
a warrior cleric. If we're doing D&D. All right, so we're going to take a couple minutes, and we're going to talk about some next things that Rob is going to try, and then I'm going to react to those things a little bit. And before we do that, we want to thank some other people who make this show possible. Those people happen to be us. We make this show possible, and we make lots of different kinds of things, and then we bring those experiences to this show like we're doing today. And the thing that I have been working on, pardon me, that I hope you will check out is the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival, which is coming up in like 2 weeks. In Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a free comics festival where 60 plus artists from around the country are coming out to, sell their wares, but also lead free events for young people, teens, and adults. As a matter of fact, something I don't think we've talked about a lot is Gina Gagliano of Random House Graphics is going to be there to do portfolio reviews. So you're going to get to talk with somebody who's like a very important person in the kids comics publishing industry, and you're going to get to show her your work personally and get some feedback from her there at the show. And then that you can find the schedule at a2caf.com. But the most important thing that I hope you'll check out now is the Kids Comics Awards. Voting is open until June 15th, 2019, where if you have a young person in your life who enjoyed some comics that were published in 2018, they can vote for their favorites via online ballot or paper ballot that they can mail in. But if you decide to use the paper ballot, you only have until June 7th, which is only a few days away at the time of this recording. The web address is a2caf.com/Kids Comics Awards. The winners will be announced June 16th. So voting closes on the 15th. The next day, we will announce the winners. So, Rob, you want to tell us a little bit? I mean, we've been talking about drawing user journey maps this entire time, but I'll play the video of, you can like nutshell it for us.
Okay. So this is a class that I'm offering currently through Skillshare, and it's like we've chatted about. It's not just the mechanics of the drawing something that captures a sequence of what happens to a user, someone you serve using a product. It provides useful examples of it, and it provides a lot of the how and the why you would want to make this useful to collaborate and connect with different perspectives. Because in my recent 6 years of my career, I've gained a giant appreciation for this intermingling understanding of what's feasible, viable, and desirable. And so if you have like people from the business, people from engineering, people from design, and they're working together, and also in design is doing what they can to make the audience included, you can do so much better things. You can avoid and work through and navigate conversations that can be challenging. I mean, it's people are funny and quirky, and they're busy, and this is about helping them get over those quirks and make a thing, make better things for who you're serving, and doing that by putting yourself in their shoes and making a journey, but doing it collaboratively. And it's even useful if you're doing this, even wearing the hats, saying like, now I'm thinking about this perspective. Is this realistic as far as what we're building, all that stuff? And you're just a solo person doing that with you're going to have a wider perspective. Through that wider perspective, you'll know what to work on next. That's why you want to map user journeys. And my class is here to help. It's like 47 minutes in a big leveling up you'll go through.
And you can find it at robstenzinger.com. It's listed right underneath projects, right next to the Lean Into Art tile. You'll find drawing user journey maps.
Mm-hmm. Using that link will actually get you what I believe was it 1 or 2 months of Skillshare for free as well.
It looks like 2 months for free.
Ah, there you go.
So robstenzinger.com. Okay. So if you are here because you heard those pitches and you're like, that's fine. That's nice that you guys make other things, but I'm really here for the show. That's what I came for. Why are you trying to talk about other things? Okay, fine. That's fair enough. The show is a product that we make as well, and there's more products like it at leanintoart.com/workshops. If you haven't checked them out yet, there are self-contained videos that you can download at a price of your choosing, even free. If you do get some value out of it, though, and you downloaded it for free, a neat thing you could do is like maybe purchase it for a friend of yours. Say, hey, here's a gift. I got some value out of this. I think you will too. And then it's like you're tipping us and you're doing a nice thing for another person. Everybody wins in that scenario. If you are watching the video on YouTube right now, giving it a thumbs up helps more people find the show. But if you're listening in a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, I forget all the different ones that are out there. Giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to us helps more people find the show as well.
Help us stand out in the marketplaces.
Yeah.
It really does help.
It helps a lot. And we thank everybody who's been doing that. It means a lot to us. It really does.
Thank you.
All right. Final thought time.
Okay.
You know what? I did not, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep the video on me while I do this, but we didn't play the transition music before for the second half of the show, but I'll play it now. I can't dance like Rob, but I try harder.
That's nice. So you kept it on you, but the thumbnails are in there still, right? So
yeah,
there's something.
Google Hangouts took away the feature where we would make the thumbnails go away. So what are you gonna do? People have pointed out that that's a feature, not a bug, anyway. So
yeah,
we're all dancing now. Okay, final thought. What are we thinking about? What are you gonna try next? Now that you've got this thing in the world and you're starting to promote it and you're starting to talk about it with people.
Well, there's an interesting element to this working on the Skillshare platform. And I think there's a chance to build an audience, right? But part of that's, how do you get discovered and whatnot? Promotion is a giant deal. Like I feel confident in my product. I feel that teaching workshops, I feel like I have plenty of evidence that there's a good product market fit there. It's just a matter of how do I get the word out now? And so Skillshare has this mechanism of, if you have a paid for class, if you have a premium class, they say, well, you can publish it wherever you want as long as it's behind a paywall. I mean, that's their policy, right? Again, I don't work for Skillshare, but like to me, that was enticing as a creator because I thought, oh, that's not onerous. You're not trying to own my content. I mean, always try to worry. You're concerned about that when you participate in someone's platform. It's their house. They may have some quirky rules, but that one is like, okay, interesting potential. And I started, I've been exploring around. It's like, well, what do people do? Some people have both premium and unpaid classes. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. I have unpaid classes, or pay what you would like at, if you go to leanintoart.com/workshops, right? Wait a minute. Well, so what if I take those and turn them into, probably a new performance? Who knows, right? Maybe, but all of a sudden have like, turning jokes into comics, Laughing Yeti, Monkey Spaghetti, all of a sudden that could be on Skillshare. Other stuff that I've not published anywhere, like writing and drawing serial comics, The Dramatic Reveal. That one has been like, I've performed it. I've done it in different venues, but it's never been published, right? Anyway, so like these are things that are assets I can put into the world pretty quickly and efficiently and use to generate signal because of the lack of friction with them. Like they're free, right? So they're free and they've been tested and all that stuff. So I think I might be able to use those classes to help sell classes.
I see. That is an interesting idea. Like what from your body of work can you just dust off and give it a little bit of extra polish? Well, adapt it to that platform too, right? Because it would take a little bit of adapting to their format. As we were talking this whole time, I was thinking about, so last November for Art Sound Off, I serialized a 30-part series on how to lead a comics workshop, and it was like everything that I care about and everything that I do in my classroom to connect kids with comics in a meaningful way. And I said from the start, I was like, this is going to be my first draft of this audiobook. But now I get to thinking like, well, could I whittle that 30 parts down to say 10 3-minute things rather than instead of a 4-hour thing, it's, what would that be? 10 3 minutes, 30 minutes. Yeah. Wow. That's a little short. Maybe an hour, maybe 20, 30, 3-minute pieces, right?
There are classes all over the map as far as length and stuff, right? I've seen like, I forget which UX related class, but it was like 12 hours. I'm like, whoa, that's way past their normal guideline. But then I've seen things that are like 20 minutes. And so there's a variety, and there are people teaching comic stuff on that platform too. So it's not like there's no context for it. And more of that content can meet more of the need that exists.
Well, and this is the way I'm justifying it in my head, is that this is a skill that I have used to make a substantial, what am I trying to say? I've bolstered my income in a substantial way. This has become a way that I have subsidized my career as a cartoonist in a very, relatively speaking, stable and meaningful way, right? And so if I'm packaging what I've done and my experience up to give to other people to do the same thing, then I don't feel that there's much, I don't feel compromised in any way by saying, yeah, you're going to have to pay for it. Because I know if you apply these things the way I did, that I can look back. I mean, this is where it's like I feel dangerously like a self-help guy, but or like one of those like it's just this easy, Nancy. If you just do these 3 steps, it'll just be perfect for you. But I think I'm thinking of the principles that are explored in that. If they are applied in your way, in your voice, then it should net you some results. So in that case, I would say, yeah, I'm going to put that on a platform with this marketplace, and you're going to have to enter this marketplace to get it, or I could put it on Gumroad concurrently for a similar price. So yeah, that's interesting. That's intriguing, and might be a while before I get to it, with everything else that's happening right now. But I'm thinking about it now after listening to your experience and looking at the affordances of the platform that you have pointed out. And I think there's something about right now I'm also we just did a reading, watching, playing episode not long ago where I was talking about like I've been listening to a lot of the Great Courses series on my Hoopla app. And they're broken up similarly into little tiny chunks, and it'll be like 14 hours of lectures, but it's not one big giant track. It's it's sectioned the way a class is sectioned.
And that for the production side, which we sort of like I don't know. That's one of the I wrote too much in our notes, right? But like for the production side, making it in little chunks was super helpful to sort of. All right, so now it's an outline. Now it's real and it's performed. Now I'm going to quickly, jump in and do some editing, and I'm soaking in the concepts, and I'm refining it, and I'm cutting out sections and making it as tight as I possibly can. And it was fantastic because I felt confident that was like I was building this lesson by lesson, and it wasn't about, well, I sure hope I performed the entire 47 minutes well this time.
Yeah.
boy, because last 5 times, last 10 times, that eats up a lot of time. But if you're doing it in little chunks, I mean, it helps, really helps a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and that was my rationale and thinking for using Art Sound Off for my first draft of the class. Right. Not only did it allow me to say like, okay, well, here's my outline. I can just like chunk. That looks like about 2 to 3. That looks like 10 minutes. That looks like 5 minutes. That looks like 2 minutes. Right. Help me figure out where to put each thing each day. But then, yes, because I did edit those episodes, that first draft. I took out a lot of stuff, and it was certainly a much less daunting task to edit 7 minutes of audio versus 60.
How funny. I forgot that you did this. You totally did this process for during Art Sound Off.
Yeah.
That's funny. I forgot.
But not to the level of polish that you did, right? Like I really was thinking of it as a first draft that I would, and I still have a master file, and it's over 4 hours of audio that I wound up making in that process. And that I was thinking of, what can I do with this? I know I said audiobook, but now I'm thinking, well, maybe that draft is something I can now listen to and rehearse in my head, so that when I turn on the video and with the whiteboard and walk through all the different parts, it'll be much more cohesive and, like I said, rehearsed, so I won't have to do much editing of the video. And then boom, 20-part Skillshare. Interesting idea.
Yeah. So there you go. And like this and dividing up maybe there's portions of it that would be worth making free, right? And then you have a mechanism to share and market it and whatnot. And then if it's free, then it's like, maybe it's transformable into other things, because that process too, like getting that signal of just having some animation that I posted to LinkedIn, that the animation itself contained some helpful stuff. That I'm gonna dig into that too. So somewhere in there, doing small helpful things where it's like people are consuming stuff in their feed anyway, and then if the idea being not that they should feel some reciprocity or something, but like this was useful, and if it relates to a need they have, well then great, there's a way for them to act on it and dig deeper. So
yeah.
Hopefully that lives up to service-minded marketing, and I can sustain that, hopefully.
Well, I think this is a topic worth checking in on down the road and see how some of these experiments play out for you. What works, what doesn't work. Maybe we could set like a 3-month check-in on the workshop.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah, because hopefully I will have racked up a bunch of experiments between here and there.
Sweet. And thank you, Rob. I think we did an episode. I think we did a podcast. So, and if any of you leaners out there have any questions, thoughts, or wonderings about this, if you go to leanintoart.com, there is a link to keep in touch with us, and you can send us an email. And if you give us permission to, we can even read the question on the air and respond to it. So any reactions you have to this topic, we would be grateful and excited to, engage with it. So this is the part where I say we record the show every week on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We stream it live on YouTube and then collect it as a podcast at leanintoart.com and patreon.com/leanintoart. Thank you, everybody, for downloading, watching, and listening. Until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
Yeah, thanks, Jerzy, so much. And, well, right here with you, I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com, and I'm on Instagram. Same name.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening. No truer words have been said. Triple down.
I am going to turn off the stream. Thanks for hanging out. See you guys next time.